Africa is a big continent. It is one of the biggest places in the world. It has 54 countries. Each country is different. People in Africa speak many languages. They have many kinds of music, food, and clothes. The land is also different. There are deserts, rainforests, rivers, mountains, and grasslands. Africa is full of life and color, but Africa is not only about land. It is about people, stories, and history. Long ago, Africa was a place of power and beauty. It was a center of trade, learning, and culture. Many people today do not know that, but it is true. Africa was a rich land. It was strong. It was connected to the world. In West Africa, there were great kingdoms. One of the most famous was the Mali Empire. It was big and powerful. Its people were smart and strong. They traded gold and salt with other places. The king of Mali was called Mansa Musa. He was very rich. Some people say he was the richest man in all of history. But Mansa Musa was not only rich, he also loved learning. He built schools and places to pray. He gave gold to poor people. He wanted to make his land better. One time, he went on a big trip to Mecca. It was a holy trip. On the way, he gave gold to many people. People in other countries talked about him for many years. They said, "Who is this great king from Africa?" Mansa Musa helped the world see that Africa was a land of greatness. In East Africa, people lived near the ocean. They used boats to travel. They traded with India, Arabia, and Persia. They sold things like spices, ivory, and cloth. They bought glass, books, and fine things. They also shared ideas. The people in East Africa spoke Swahili. This language is a mix of African and Arabic words. It helped people talk and trade. Swahili is still spoken today. In North Africa, people crossed the Sahara Desert. They used camels. These camels carried salt, gold, and other goods. The desert was not a wall. It was a road. People met in towns. They talked, they traded, they told stories. The desert was full of life. Africa had many smart people. They were good at farming. They knew how to make tools from iron. They could build homes, roads, and cities. They used math to plan markets and towns. They had leaders and laws. They knew how to keep peace in their villages. They also had art and music. They painted, danced, and sang. Their culture was rich and deep. Africa was not a place that was behind the world. It was a part of the world. It was open. It had strong trade with Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Africa was connected. It was respected, but many people today forget this. When they hear Africa, they think of poor people. They think of problems. That is not the full story. Africa's story is long. It started with power and pride. It started with learning and trade. It started with gold and hope. We must remember that. We must see Africa's full picture. Yes, Africa has problems today. But we must also look back. We must see the strong roots. We must see the dreams of the past. When we do that, we can understand the present. This part of the story is very important. It shows us what Africa was. It shows us what Africa can be again. A land of riches, a land of dreams. Before we look at the hard times, we must understand the good times. Before we ask why is Africa still poor, we must ask when was Africa rich? The answer is, long ago, Africa was full of light, and that light is not gone. It is still there, deep inside, waiting to shine again. Now, we will go to the next part of the story. We will learn what happened after the good times. We will see the storms that came from outside. But for now, let us remember, Africa was once a place of greatness, full of smart people, rich lands, and bright ideas. It was a land of riches and dreams. Africa was once strong and rich. It had kings, cities, and trade. People made tools, grew food, and lived in peace. But one day, things began to change. Ships came from far away. They came from Europe. At first, these ships came to trade. Europeans brought cloth, salt, and metal tools. They took gold, ivory, and other goods from Africa. This trade was peaceful in the beginning, but soon the trade became something else. The Europeans wanted more. They did not just want gold or cloth. They wanted people. At that time in West Africa, some people worked for others. But they were not treated like objects. They lived with families. They could have land. Their children were orphan-free. This kind of slavery was very different from what came next. European traders started to buy many African people. They needed workers in the new lands across the Atlantic Ocean. These new lands were in the Americas. There, the Europeans wanted to build big farms. These farms needed many workers. But the native people in the Americas were dying from disease. So, the Europeans looked to Africa. They wanted strong workers for their farms. Some African leaders agreed to sell people. They wanted guns, cloth, and alcohol. Sometimes, they fought wars just to capture people to sell. This trade grew and grew. It became very big. Millions of African people were taken. They were put on ships and sent far away. The trip across the ocean was called the Middle Passage. It was very long and very hard. Many people got sick and died on the ships. The ones who lived were sold like objects. They lost their homes, their names, and their freedom. This kind of trade is called the transatlantic slave trade. It made some people rich, but it hurt Africa deeply. Strong, smart, and skilled people were taken. These were the people who could have helped Africa grow. Without them, many villages became weak. Farms could not grow as much food. Cities could not build as fast. Life changed for the worse. This trade also caused war. To get more people to sell, some kingdoms fought their neighbors. They spent money on weapons, not on schools or markets. They focused on war, not on peace. This made life more dangerous. Local industries also became weak. Why make cloth if you can buy it cheap from Europe? Why build tools if you can trade people for them? African goods became less important. Foreign goods took over. Africa began to depend on others. It lost power. And then, in the 1800s, everything changed again. Europe stopped buying slaves. Many countries made slavery illegal. This was good for human rights, but for Africa, it was a new problem. For many years, slave trade was a big part of the economy. When it stopped, Africa had nothing strong to sell. It had no factories, it had few roads, the economy fell apart. At the same time, Europe was becoming very strong. New machines and factories helped Europe make goods faster and cheaper. Europe was now rich and powerful. Africa, in contrast, looked weak and poor. European countries started to say that Africa needed help. But what they really wanted was more land and more resources. They wanted to rule Africa. This began the time of colonization. In the late 1800s, European powers met and made plans. They decided which parts of Africa they would take. France, Britain, Belgium, Germany, each country wanted a piece. They drew lines on maps and claimed land. This was called the Scramble for Africa. European powers took gold, diamonds, and farmland. They made Africans work, often without pay. They forced people to work in mines and on big farms. Life was hard and unfair. They built roads and train lines, but only to move goods to the coast. These roads did not help Africans travel or trade with each other. They only helped Europe. Under colonial rule, Africans could not be leaders. They could not go to good schools. They could not get good jobs. They were not trained to run their own countries. This left a big problem for the future. Europeans said bad things about Africa. They said Africa had no history, no smart people, no good leaders. These ideas were wrong, but many people believed them. These ideas made it easier for Europe to control Africa. Africa lost its freedom, it lost its voice. It lost its chance to grow, but inside Africa, something stayed strong. The people remembered their past. They remembered Mansa Musa, they remembered their songs, their stories, and their dreams. Even when the storm was strong, the heart of Africa still beat. Even when the world forgot Africa's light, the people did not forget who they were. In the next part, we will see how Africa begins to rise again. The pain is real, but so is the hope. Africa still has something to say. And the world is starting to listen. After World War II, many African countries became free. The people were happy, they sang and danced in the streets. They believed that freedom would bring good things. They hoped for peace, jobs, schools, and strong countries. Many new leaders came with big dreams. They said, "We can build our future. We will grow, we will be strong again." But it was not easy. Colonial powers had left quickly. They did not teach Africans how to run a country. They did not leave good schools or hospitals. Most roads and train lines were built only to take things out of Africa. These roads did not connect African cities with each other. That made trade difficult. In many countries, there were not enough teachers, doctors, or engineers. Most people had little education. Many young people did not finish school. Only a small number had been to university. The new leaders tried different ideas. Some believed in African socialism. This idea said that the government should own big businesses like farms and mines. The goal was to help all people, not just a few rich ones. The government wanted to build factories, make jobs, and protect local goods, but this system had problems. The governments were not fast, they were slow to change. It was hard to trade with other African countries because of different rules. Also, it was hard to sell things to other continents because African factories were small. They could not make things as fast or as cheap as factories in Europe or Asia. Many people also did not have the training for factory jobs. There were also natural problems. Some parts of Africa had long dry seasons. Others had insects that destroyed crops. Diseases like malaria made many people sick. Poor families could not pay for medicine. Healthcare was hard to get in many places. Because colonial powers had controlled everything, Africans had little experience with private business. Now, they had to learn how to run companies, build banks, and organize markets. It took time, many mistakes were made, then came more problems. Some leaders stayed in power too long. They did not allow elections. They gave jobs and money to friends, not to good workers. Corruption became a big problem. Money for roads and schools was used for rich people's houses and cars. Some foreign companies also wanted Africa's oil and minerals. They paid money to corrupt leaders to get easy deals. This made the rich richer and kept the poor poor. The money did not go to the people, it went to a few hands. When people protested, some leaders used the police to stop them. In some places, there were coups. One group of soldiers would take power from another. This happened many times. It made countries unstable. Investors stayed away. People did not trust the system. In the 1980s, Africa had many troubles. Some called it Africa's lost decade. Roads broke. Railways stopped. Schools were empty. Hospitals had no medicine. Many smart people left Africa to find jobs in other countries. It was a sad time. Also, help from other countries became smaller. The Soviet Union and Western countries gave less money. Africa needed help. They asked for loans. Rich countries said, "We will help, but you must change your economy." So African governments sold state businesses. But often, they sold them to friends. The changes did not help the people. Life stayed hard, but change was coming. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, people started asking for more freedom. They wanted fair elections, better leaders, and honest government. They wanted peace and jobs. They wanted to live with hope. And slowly, things began to change. Rich countries changed how they gave help. They started to support countries that worked for democracy. This helped many African nations hold elections. People could vote, people could speak, people could ask questions. It was not perfect, but it was a start. Today, many African countries are growing fast. Their economies are getting bigger. Some young people start small businesses, others work in tech or farming. More students finish school and go to university. There is more energy, more dreams, and more hope. In Uganda, scientists found a plant in Lake Victoria. This plant was a problem before, but now they use it to make food for animals. This is one small example of African creativity. Many people are finding local solutions to local problems. The African Union helps countries work together. Trade between African nations is growing. More people are joining the middle class. They have money to spend. When people buy from African businesses, those businesses grow stronger. There are still many problems. Climate change brings floods and drought. Some areas still have war. Many people are still poor. But now, more and more Africans are standing up. They are saying, we can do this. Africa is not waiting for help. Africa is helping itself. The road is long, but the people are walking forward. They remember the past. They carry the pain. But they also carry the dream. Africa is rising again. With good leaders, smart youth, and strong hearts, the future can be bright. The journey is not over, but hope is alive. Africa's story is still being written, and this time, the people are holding the pen. Now we have reached the end of our story. We learned about Africa, a land full of beauty, power, and dreams. In the beginning, Africa was rich. It had kings, trade, cities, and knowledge. People like Mansa Musa showed the world the greatness of Africa. Africa was connected to other parts of the world. It was a place of light, but then storms came from outside. The slave trade took away millions of people, families were broken, villages became weak. Later, colonization took Africa's land and resources. People lost their freedom and their voices. Africa became poor, not because it wanted to be poor, but because others took what it had. After that came a time of hope. African nations became free. They made mistakes. They faced problems like corruption, war, and poverty. But slowly, something new began. Young people started to rise. Good leaders began to grow. Countries started working together. More people got education. More people built businesses. The story started to change. Africa is still facing many challenges. But now, it is moving forward. The past was painful. But the future can be bright. And what can we learn from this story? We learn that history is important. We must not judge people or countries without knowing their past. We must see the whole picture, the pain and the hope, the fall and the rise. We also learn that change takes time. But it is possible if people stay strong, if they learn, and if they work together, they can build a better life. This is not just Africa's story. It is a lesson for all of us to never give up, even after hard times. Now, congratulations. If you listen to this full story, you have not only learned about Africa, you have also improved your English. You practiced listening, you learned new words. And you followed a full story in English. You should be proud of yourself. Here's a quick question for you. What made Africa weaker in the past? A. Trade with Asia. B. The slave trade and colonization. Type your answer, A or B, in the comment section below. Let's see how many of you got it right. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us make more beautiful and simple English stories for learners like you. We also welcome donations. At the beginning, it is hard for us to make high-quality content. But we are doing this for free to help you learn English with heart and joy. So if you can, please support our channel so we can grow and continue creating for you. Thank you so much, and see you in the next story.